As far as our technique goes, there's a couple of things that we can try. The first thing we can do is to add some larger lines that kind of help define the form of whatever object that we're creating. The second technique would allow us to create some smaller details on top of this, and this is where we can fill out either the shading or more of the texture of the object that we're working on. Let's start with the form ones first. I'm going to do this on the ears. Since the ears are kind of farther away, we really can't tell how fuzzy they are, but I do want to give an idea of what shape they are and what direction that they're moving. So in this case, I want to connect some lines to this form of the ear to give it a sense of direction. I'm going to use my pen tool, and this give me a starting point and a stopping point. I'm going to let them all converge up into this point right here. Since I am working in different layers, I'm going to go ahead and lock down layer 1, and I'm just going to work on layer, in this case 3, on top of it. Therefore, if there's any changes I need to make, I can make them from here. In my case, I'm going to click and drag and just create a line right there. That looks good. And I'm going to create another line, starting off at the top, clicking through, and then maybe having the form follow right there. So I've got a starting point and a stopping point. I'll select both of the lines. Now let's change up the size of each of these lines. And we'll make them, let's go with 4 point. I will change the profile because I like the look of that. And let's blend them together. I've got my blend tool, click on one and the other, and for now it's giving me just one solid line. Let's see what that looks like by itself. Not too bad. Actually, if I was to use my white arrow, I can click on my starting and stopping line, change up the point of it, and this will give me a little bit more control over how it looks and how the two lines will interact with each other. Remember, since they're converging with each other, this will give me the opportunity to add some shading to whatever I have. If I wanted to, I could drop the size of it. Let's do that. Let's drop it down to maybe 2 point. Then we'll bring up our blending options by double clicking on the blend tool and choosing the number of steps in between that we have. And this will give me something that looks more like that. I kind of like that kind of look. It adds a little bit more shade, maybe even shade that's not even part of the illustration, but it's a little something else that's not part of my file. If I look at it now, check that out. Now it looks like it's curving, it's moving in that direction. That's the style that I want for that ear. Let's turn on our image again. Let's apply it to some other different areas. Remember, I'm looking for the direction that it's moving. In this case, I've got this inner ear, and I can tell there's a little shadow moving along this particular side. So in my case, I'm going to start off. Let's do some thin lines there. Maybe it'll get nice and thick right here. We'll select both of those, make them a little bit wider, change their profile, and let's blend them together. Oops, grab the blend tool. And then double click the blend tool. Let's see how our options will change that up. Adding more or less. There's that right there. Not too bad. I can then go back in and refine and tweak to see exactly how I want this to flow. Hey, that's looking pretty good. Now it's really adding on to that particular area. If I turn off my picture, that looks cool. I'll continue on and add some more lines that follow down through here. Grab my tool. In this case, I'll add one beside it. Maybe get one a little bit thinner. And then we'll end up a little bit thicker, maybe turned the other way. Select all three of them, holding down my shift key. Change the size of it, change the stroke of it, grab my blender tool. By the way, the keyboard shortcut for Blender is the W key. And then click on all three of those to blend them together. You don't have to have just two, you can have three. Notice, however, it's going in a straight line, so we may have to alter that up a bit. But let's open up our options and play around with this first. Give it a few bit more. That's not too bad. We'll say OK. grab my white arrow. It's this one that I want to move over. Make sure it's hidden within that fold, having it curved that way. If I turn off my image, so far here's what it's looking like. Not too bad. The second kind of technique that I may want to do is to add a little bit smaller detail, and this will be something like on the edge where his fur is. Paying attention to where the lights and the darks are for your image is very, very important. For my image, I've got a lot of dark areas right next to light areas, and I've got some thick lines and some thin lines that are going to be converging. So this may actually take multiple passes to create the effect that I want. I like to start off with just regular contour lines, and the best contour I can tell for this one is the shape of the fox's nose. So to do this, let's go on the little bridge here. Notice this white area. I kind of want to keep that white area nice and light. This top area, I just want to give an indication of the direction that it's moving. Now I could have these lines going along the length of his muzzle. So clicking, dragging, something like this. That would be one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, to emphasize the roundedness of the muzzle, would be going across his nose. So something more like this. I kind of like the look of this one. Let's see how well this will work out. So I've got a starting point, and let's say I wanted to end it getting maybe this curved right here. I'll select both of them, make sure they're the same width, and change my profile. You don't have to use the same profile. I just happen to like it for what I'm trying to do. Blend both of those together, and then double click to open up our blending options. And let's see what we got. So far so good. You can see how the curvature of this line gives it a good indication of how the muzzle might be curving. I think it's curving a little bit too much on the ending point. So I'm going to bring this down much better, just like that. Now it's following along that edge. If I turn off my image, I should be getting a good sense of form to the object that I'm working with. Now remember, you can change up the width of these. Personally, I think that's a little bit too thick. Let's make it thinner. Yeah, that's getting there. Or I could make it thinner by keeping it nice and thick and then reducing the number of steps that are in between the two. That's where your judgment comes in. Maybe something more like that. Now let's get some more directional type things. Moving around his eyes, you can see the eyebrows are going up and away. Let's have some thicker eyebrows. Start off right here. And maybe get much thicker. And then finally get thin right there. Change the width of it. Change the profile of it. And let's get crazy. Let's blend these two together. There and there. Now when I open up my blend tool, you can see they're already thick. I can give it multiple steps in between there. And I've got lashes. That looks something like that. Not too bad. I would then need to go back in, tweak my lines, tweak how they're blending with each other. The starting and stopping points to give it the exact effect that I want. Maybe I don't like those curves too much. Select my lines. Something like that would really, really work out. There's one eyebrow. Turn back on my image. Let's add the other eyebrow. In this case, it's going off the opposite direction. I've got a good starting point and a stopping point. And then finally blend those two together. And that's the way that one's looking. Okay, I'm just going to sit back and rework through my entire image. Remember, we want it to look very linear, so it's going to have a good little style to it. I'm not looking for 100% picturesque line type drawing. What I'm looking for is a digital line, something that looks like an illustration. I'm paying close attention to my light areas and my dark areas, and you'll see me overlapping different techniques and using whatever I feel is best to give me the results that I want. A final thing you could consider is adding color to the area that you're working with. Don't think you have to work in black and white. However, for what you're going to see me do, I'm going to work in black and white just to keep this particular style.